Hello, welcome to Geekatplay Studio. This is the 5th tutorial in our beginners series for View, and today we're going to be talking about how to apply materials to our terrains. We've done this briefly a couple of times in our tutorials already, but today we're going to be going into more depth about how to do this and how to make our terrains look really a lot how we want them to look. So we'll start with the terrain here. And I like how this is, but I think I want something a little softer. So I right-clicked Edit Material there, and I'm bringing it down. I will click on the Paint tab here, and I have the dig here, and I'm just going to take away some of this height, soften it up a little bit. And I also want to erode it here a little bit and make it softer here. There we go. I think that's about how I like it here. So I'll click OK. And that's more what I'm looking for, some rolling hills here. Now you can see this a little bit in the preview, but really we've just got this plain default color here that we work with, and what we want is some landscape here. So we'll right click here, or again we could press on that little button there, and here in our basic we have landscapes, and this came with View, and there's several that you can use, rocks and plants, and choosing a different landscape is going to give you a different look. So if I, for instance, pick desert and hit OK, I'll have kind of that desert feel. It almost looks like sand dunes, although there is actually some sand dunes we could use. So maybe I want a different material. There's Shasta Rock, Scrubland. Several things that we can choose, rocks on plants. But the one I'm thinking about right now is in our Geekatplay file, and we have this in our mega pack. And we're going to look at our ground. And I'm going to use this green lush grass, because I'm going for the Julie Andrews dancing on rolling hills, singing "The Hills Are Alive" kind of a look. And this I want to show you is called a simple material. And we'll go into Edit Material here. I right clicked there, and you'll see that it's just a simple material. It says that right here, green grass. There's nothing very fancy to it. You can work with a lot of things here, but we'll be talking about that at a later time in our intermediate series. And we like to use the advanced material editor, and that's just because there's a lot of power in it. There's a lot more you can do with it, and it's just good to get used to these things. And that's especially true in the other materials we have. We have mixed material, volumetric material, and that is just things like smoke, dust, things that are in a whole volume, not just on the surface, and our ecosystem. We won't really talk about volumetric materials, but in our next tutorial we're going to be talking about the ecosystem. So here I have my rolling hills here, but I think, what if I want something different? What if I want something like Mount Karajas from The Lord of the Rings, or maybe I just want the Alps there. So I'll just go ahead and cut this terrain out, and I'll bring in another one with those kinds of peaks, maybe going there. And we're going to go in and we'll load a different kind of material. We're going to load in a mixed material. And again, we'll use our Geekatplay materials here, our advanced materials in the ground, I have snow mountains here. And like you see, it's mostly covering the entire mountain, and that's not exactly the effect I want. So this is where editing the material is going to get important to us, interesting to us. So you see here that we have our mixing proportions right here. And I can move this down so that there's just a little bit of snow, and if I click on this to refresh it, you see just a little bit of snow scattered about the fields. I can move it up so that it'll totally cover. You almost can't see. And you can see kind of the effect that's happening on this sphere of what will happen in your environment. There. Now I want to show you right now in this material we have it set so that the distribution of materials is dependent on the slope, altitude, and orientation. That's a lot to say in one thing. But if we don't click on this, what happens is that they mix evenly. So if I have more snow, it just kind of covers evenly, a little bit pokes through. And see how that's different? So that's an important effect that you're going to want, especially with snow. However, if you were looking for more like there's rocks underneath and some green showing, or there's dirt and maybe some little bits of grass showing through, this might be the effect you were looking for, but we're looking for something that depends on the altitude. And I want to go in here and show you a little bit about how these can influence how it looks. So the influence of altitude, let's see what we've got here. I want a little less snow. The influence of altitude, if it's strong, it doesn't seem to make that much difference here. But in some materials you'll really see, and you can see kind of what goes on here. The places that you see a big difference is the influence of slope, if that's strong, and you can choose, do you want them more on flat surfaces? What happens if we put them on steep slopes only? See how that made that sphere look different? What does that look like on here? See? But then if we put them on flat surfaces, maybe there's no influence. And then it's just kind of scattered about. Or a lot of influence. And it's on all those flat surfaces. Now the influence of orientation, we have these two tabs here. And this is interesting. This tab is interesting for me because what this does is kind of rotate it around. So if you look, what's going on is this is kind of rotating 360 degrees around this sphere. So if we go like this, you know, without doing anything else, that gives us a different look. So we can say, oh, the wind was blowing the snow onto our hills from a certain direction. And that's what that does for you. And you can see that that direction, depending on the slope of the mountain, makes a lot of difference here. And you can again make that influence very strong. You know, it was really blowing hard and it was blowing sideways there. Or or rather weak here. So there's just all sorts of things that you can do. Play around with it until you get it looking kind of how you want it. Now, one thing I want to say, don't be afraid to experiment. You've already spent your money on Vue, and the only thing you're going to lose if you really mess up is your time. You won't be losing any materials or anything. That's the nice thing about working in computer programs. So I think I want a stronger influence of altitude, and I want a little bit less snow. And there we go, just some snowy fields like that. And that's just what you can do a little bit with mixed materials. Something else, you can increase this smooth blending if you want. So that changes, it goes a little bit smoother, a little bit. This would give you just almost no blending. You'd have really sharp lines there, and this would blend it in together a lot. So that's just the kind of a thing you can get. And let's do a quick preview render of this. We'll render it to the screen at 640 by 480. And there you go, some snow-covered mountains that have just kind of been drifted through. And there's just a lot that you can do with these different materials. In our next tutorial, we will show you how to work with the ecosystem materials and how to bring plants and rocks into your landscape, into your terrain, so that it can bring in a little bit more variety, a few more details into your scene. Thank you for watching this tutorial from Geekatplay Studio. And if you have any questions or if there's any resources you need, please visit us at www.geekatplay.com or www.vuetutorials.com.